Well, there are questions tonight about a controversial treatment for allergies.
Yes, it's called NAET, and some people swear by it, while others completely dismiss it. Here's CBS 2's Lisa Siegel.
Teresa Hamlin of Glendale is what you'd call a nature lover. Happily married.
Yeah?
And Baxter is her baby.
Roll over. Good girl.
She says it's a good life, but not always an easy one.
Waking up and I couldn't breathe. It was the scariest feeling.
See, Teresa suffered from allergies and asthma since she was little. Changes in weather, pollen, sugar, even dog dander. The list goes on and on.
None of the Western medicine was helping, and I would be put on some really heavy drug and taking my inhaler, sometimes probably too often.
Let's have your right arm up.
Then she heard of a natural treatment known as NAET. But this time, Teresa was not told to stay away from her allergens. She was told to hold them.
Still kind of fascinates me that it's non-invasive. You have all your clothes on.
Resist. Resist.
Here's how it works. Patients are tested for their sensitivities by holding diluted vials of common allergens. If the doctor spots weakness during any of the testing,
Instead of seeing it nice and strong, we'd see it go weak.
they're treated for that allergen. It all uses a combination of chiropractic and Chinese principles. That includes acupuncture, acupressure, and more. Teresa's doctor, Valerie Goodkin.
The very first thing we test are basic vitamins and minerals, and we use muscle testing or kinesiology.
The doctor says through the NAET technique, the body builds up defenses, and eventually those allergens that used to make patients sick no longer have that power.
Usually, an allergen will clear in one treatment.
Now, acupuncture is not uncommon when it comes to allergy work, but when it comes to this particular treatment, not everyone's sold. In fact, it's got its critics.
There's a whole smorgasbord of offerings in alternative medicine. So how do people choose? How do they go about deciding that something might work for them? Well, here's one way they decide. I wish this were a joke, but it isn't. People take pendulums into the store and they hold them over different bottles of vitamins and remedies, and they let the pendulum tell them which one is right for them. And some people ask their muscles. Applied kinesiology is a bogus muscle testing technique that chiropractors use to diagnose allergies and to determine treatments. And some of them think it works by proxy. In this picture, the chiropractor is testing this little girl by testing the muscle strength in her mother's arm.
Between the 5th and 6th rib space, just touch and hold there.
Okay.
And hold. See how strong that got? And let go of that. And touch that spot again. So the body will not only tell you where things are out of balance, but also how to fix it. So now go and rub here, all along this spot. And if it's tender any place, that means rub there a little extra.
Right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to rub a spot on your back. Okay. Now we're going to go back and retest and hold.
Ta-da!
And it got strong. So that's how you fix it. And for every muscle that you might test, or every meridian, there's a different set of correction points. And there's reflex points on the body. There's alternative reflex points on the head. You can trace meridians. There's acupressure holding points.
Have you ever wondered about muscle testing? Is it valid? Is it true? Does it make sense? I'm Dr. Kyle Christensen. Today we're going to talk about muscle testing and how you can use it in your life. The first thing that people need to understand about muscle testing is it's not magic. It's not tapping into some unknown that we can't truly understand. What muscle testing truly is muscle testing is a means or a method to amplify your intuition. I believe that each of us are intuitive. Some more than others. It's a skill, it's a practice you can develop to listen to your body, to listen to to what you feel inside. Muscle testing is simply a way to amplify the response. There are many methods or means to ask the body questions to get an answer. One of the things we do when we're doing a muscle test is we're simply asking a question. It's important to know that the questions that you ask need to be a yes or no question, something your body can elicit a response, either a positive response yes or a negative response no, based on the means or the method that you're using, whether you're using a sway test or whether you're using a muscle test. One of the simple ones that people can learn how to do for themselves is what we call a sway test. A sway test is simply holding something in your hand and just sitting with it, if you will, and if something is positive or good, it's going to pull you forward. If something is bad, it's going to pull you away. To give you an example, if I hold a supplement in my hand, and I'll stand profile for you, and it's something that my body needs, I may feel a slight tugging or pulling forward. If it's something that I don't need, often we'll feel that it'll push us back. Again, it's nothing magical or mystical. It's simply your body intuitively giving a response. The muscles twitching and pushing your body forward if it's something intuitively your body feels that it needs, and pushing you back if it's not. Many people will use different means or methods. You can use a pendulum. You can use a dowsing rod. Dowsing has been around for millennia. It's a method of finding water. They also call it water witching, and it's still used today. Again, it's a means or a method to amplify your intuition.
Welcome to this introduction of kinesiology. I'm Claire Muller and I run the Academy of Systematic Kinesiology, which my father brought over to this country in the 70s. We're going to have a look at some muscle testing today, which taps into the biochemic feedback of the body. And we can ascertain as kinesiologists what's actually going on inside, which is incredibly powerful and empowering. So let's have a look at muscle testing now on the table. So we're testing a shoulder muscle here called the supraspinatus, and as we can see, that was a weak response. So what we're going to do now is introduce some nutrition into the energy field to see whether it makes a difference, and in this case it doesn't. So we'll test another one, see what happens here, and we're now getting a different response where the muscle can fire well, which will help the body regain balance.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to energy test Fission. And I'm going to put his arm straight down his body with his thumb next to his leg, his fingers just straight down, and I'm going to ask him to pull his arm to his body, and I'm going to pull it out, okay? And that, okay, now here's what is interesting. You can start, he's a little weak on this energy, so we're going to find out if any of these foods actually make him strong. Okay.
So he's not going to know which food we're testing. I'm going to show you which food it is. As long as his energy field, the energy field of the food is going to be interacting with his energy field, and that's what's being tested.
So let me get this straight. So the food is in my energy field. It's not actually touching my back.
That's right.
That's good, because I hate bacon at the back of my shirt.
Well, great. Okay. What I'm going to ask you to do is pull your arm to your body, and I'm going to pull it out. There's a little weakness, but it's about the same as it was originally. Pull that away.
That was the end.
Okay, now let me see if you're still about the same. Yeah, which means it does nothing for him. It's not either good nor bad.
It's just nothing for me?
Nothing for you. Okay.
Next.
Oh, that's good for you.
Bacon?
Bacon.
Bacon. Yes. Yes. Thank God. Thank God. Bacon supports me.
One of the wonderful things about energy testing is that you can test food or vitamins and herbs and find out what is really good for you. And if you're taking vitamins, what's too much for you or too little. You can find the exact amount you need, which is really important because, you know, if you take too much of something that's really good for you, it just becomes another toxin in your body.
I had one earlier that was about O-ring testing, they call it. There's a lot more self-testing methods. I was just giving you two, the sway test and the quadricep test. In our remote class that we're going to be starting soon, that's a psychological remote where you learn how to do remote sessions, clearing deep-seated psychological issues. We'll be getting into that, and we're going to give you more. But someone asked about what I call the O-ring. There's different ways of taking your thumb to, say, your index finger and then pulling it apart. I don't do this. I don't find it as, for me, it works, but for some people it does. And you can say, body, give me a yes, body, give me a no, and then it will go through. You can do other fingers as well. Little finger, yes, no. That might be easier because there's less tendency to compensate. So there's lots of self-testing techniques. Whatever you find works well for you, do it. Some people use a pendulum. I've used a pendulum at times. In fact, I keep one in my pocket. But again, it's not so much of this course, but some people will hold a pendulum and they'll say, pendulum, give me a yes. Okay, and their mind goes forward and back. And then pendulum, give me a no. And now mine sways left to right. And whatever works for you is fine.
One that I like to use, because I like to use one hand, if I'm going to be touching a reflex point on somebody, I'll hold my fingers here. If it sticks, that's yes. If it slides off into like a snap, that's no. Play around with some of these things and find which works best for you. Invariably, one of these is going to resonate with you and you're going to feel comfortable with that. Another thing that we find, if you're working with family members and you find that one of your children, you can really muscle test good, but let's say your husband or son or brother is very difficult and they don't want to show that weak response, you can use a surrogate test. And so what you would simply do is you would have the person that you can muscle test very easily with, hold strong, hold the hand of the person that you're working with. And it's like the electricity runs through them, and you can use the easy muscle testing person as a surrogate to respond to that. And so you could ask the question to the second person and use her as your muscle test.
But this is very popular, especially among young ladies and women, especially people not too much in the true medical. It was made popular by Bernard Jensen, who was a chiropractor, now deceased. That was also a naturopath, but he wrote books that are of this occult system. He was into this whole type of therapy, and so he's the one that made that popular. Let's go a little further. Applied kinesiology, have you heard that word?
I have.
That's where you are supposedly a muscle will become weak if you have a disorder in a certain area. Let's say if I have a bottle of medicine, if it's the right medicine for me, I hold my arm out or a certain muscle, then somebody will push down on that. And if my arm is weak and can't hold, it's a sign that perhaps that's the medicine that I need, or vice versa, a variety of things. But it's taking a muscle group, applying it to a certain part of the body or to a deficiency of vitamin or mineral, and saying by testing the strength of the muscle, we can know whether you are low in selenium or low and need something else. This is a very popular.
So that's the diagnostic method.
That's it. Applied kinesiology, yes. That muscles have this correspondence with the internal organs, and if the muscle's weak, it gives you a clue as to the problem. Now, where did that come from? Well, we'll take a look here. George Goodhart chiropractic doctor in 1964. He blended the theory of innate intelligence. Chiropractic believes that this great energy is called, they call it innate. That was the beginning of their profession, is applying that.
Hello, this is Dr. Tom Groover of Boulder Chiropractic Clinic and Extension Division of Palmer College of Chiropractic. We're an Extension Division now because I'm on the Extension faculty there at the college, and I have with me my first intern, Darcy Ray. Welcome, Darcy.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, and we've had some very deep philosophical conversations, because one of the things that you'll find out about chiropractic students is that they're very, very interested in the philosophy of chiropractic. So I'd like to spend a little time today going over some of the fundamentals of chiropractic philosophy. So one of the things that we start out with as fundamental to that philosophy is that there is an order to the universe. And that order is a result of a principle in nature called creative intelligence. And creative intelligence manifests in the human physiology, and according to chiropractic, which is a vitalistic philosophy and practice, that your level of wellness or disease is a function of how much creative intelligence is operating within your physiology. So the early founders of chiropractic discovered this principle and began to treat disease using a different model, and that was that if you bring this creative intelligence, this fundamental life to the person, that you will manifest health. And this was in opposition to allopathic medicine at the time, which was if there's something that's not functioning normally in the physiology, in other words, it's something is overacting or there's an imbalance, what you do is you poison the body in order to be able to shut that off. So that's a way of treating disease through basically turning off the physiology or some aspect of the physiology, where chiropractic is about turning on all the valuable aspects of the physiology so the body can heal itself. So there's a fundamental of self-healing, wouldn't you say?
Well, I like that the chiropractic philosophy branches out. It just doesn't talk about sections of the body. It talks about your body as a whole, and even beyond your body as a whole, what's making that body run, and where is that information, energy coming from? And then focusing primarily on the nerves and the brain, it makes a lot of sense that everything is traveling in our body back and forth that way. But it does touch on much more of what's getting our information even to our brain and to our nerves and into our senses and further on. There's a strong body-mind connection that's involved with chiropractic, and as Dr. Tom said, there is a strong vitalistic approach. And I'd like Dr. Tom to actually define what vitalism means.
Well, vitalism, I mean, by definition, vitality is the liveliness, okay? So one of the qualities of creative intelligence is that it's lively. You know, it's lively, it's life-giving in and of itself. It is life.
Now, where did that come from? Well, we'll take a look here. George Goodhart, a chiropractic doctor, in 1964. By psychic means, he was given the information for the applied kinesiology therapy, according to the books.
He was given history. Where did it come from?
The spirit world.
Spirit world?
Mm-hmm. That's as I read. And
yeah,
that's
I understand.
The contact on that part. Formed by psychic means, 1964.
And unfortunately, my first wife passed away. She had a unfortunate situation where she had an open can of tomato juice, had a foil top that had been compromised, and the tomato juice, even though it was in the fridge, developed botulism. She drank the tomato juice, and unfortunately, she had an infection of her bowel, and the bowel had to be resected, that section of it, and the PAT test came back botulism, but she went on to a very good recovery from the surgery. But a year after that, there was a malignant nodule behind the area where she had the surgery, and eventually she had a malignant tumor there that eventually metastasized, and she passed away. And we had elected to lecture in Utah, even though she had been ill. When she passed away, I decided to take my children skiing, and about a month after, and I was thinking about the fact that she had passed away, and how could that have happened? There's none of that kind of condition in her family, and she had always been on a very good diet, and she certainly didn't have any of the historical danger signs with that. She had, I was wondering to myself, how could that have happened? And I was in my study at home, getting ready to go skiing, and I was mulling it over in my mind. What could have caused it? Is there a reason for it? How come we couldn't find it when she had the initial X-rays and all that stuff at the hospital? Anyway, my mind said to me, you're asking the wrong person. And I said, well, who do you ask besides yourself or the patient? And my mind said, you ask the patient to ask the patient. And I said, ask the patient to ask the patient? I said, you're talking in riddles, whoever you are. And they said, no, ask the patient to ask the patient. And then I immediately thought of the patient touching him. I said, I think that's what that means. I started having the patient touch certain areas, testing muscles, and that's how therapy localization began.
But this is very popular. My brother went into a dentist, and he was going to check which tooth was needing pulled by kinesiology, applied kinesiology. Kinesiology is a true science of the movement of muscle about joints.
Right.
This is applied, quite different. I needed to make that clear, because otherwise we cause the physical therapists will be down on us.
A little trouble, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, so I've shown a picture here. They can test for allergies, vitamin deficiencies, minerals. Oh, maybe you want to select a homeopathy therapy, and so you use a pendulum. Or this is a form of pendulum in a sense. As I put up there, select a tooth to pull on there. So this, why it's become so popular in these years, I don't know. But it's widespread. But it's nothing but a form of divination, as I understand it.
Hello, my name is Dr. Troy Giles. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I've been practicing now for about 17 years, and I've had some wonderful experiences during that 17 years. I've treated over 10,000 patients and over 90,000 office visits. And to be able to bring that up to you so that you understand that It is the ability to do some great work with your patients using kinesiology. This is a very good chart, and this will help you to be able to learn the points. As you start to scan, you can keep this right in front of you and do the scan. This also comes in a nice poster you can put on your wall as well if you'd like to have that for your office. Now as we proceed, I'm going to make reference to the page, so keep it handy. But I'm now just going to go through and show you how that looks, how my hand touches Erica. So first is brain. That's just basically at the scalp line. Now realize that these aren't specific. You got to be 2 centimeters up above the scalp line and 2.5 centimeters left of center. No, it doesn't have to be that specific. And in reality, you don't even really need to touch the patient, because you got to realize the aura is extending clear out over here. Clear out over here where you can't even see me. It's out to here. You understand that? So aura comes out. So this, and I'm going to take even a further step away from this. You can actually do scanning long distance. That sounds weird, but it works with quantum physics. Quantum physics says that energy is never created nor destroyed. It goes out from us forever. So I have patients, for example, who are on the other side of the world who will call me to have a scan done. And I can actually scan them either using a proxy person or just thought as thinking of the different points as I'm thinking of that person. And I feel a change in my muscles here with a yes or a no question. Anyway, that's elongated, that's fringy, that's far out, but it works well. But suffice it to say, the energy leaves us and goes out. We don't have to be that specific. I don't have to be on a precise area.
Applied kinesiology. I'm going to be careful. Original kinesiology is the study of the joints and the motion of the body. That's science. That is medical science. There's nothing wrong with kinesiology. Whenever you're dealing with this, you have to ask them, are you talking about applied or energetic kinesiology, or are you talking about traditional kinesiology? Applied kinesiology assumes that physical illness and disease result from a blockage or a deficiency of... I can't hear you. Okay, wow. Psychic energy within the body. And thus, muscle testing claims to work by manipulating this mystical life energy called chi or prana or life force, which is supposedly circulating within the body. The purpose of manipulating these alleged energies is to cure illness and maintain health. That's not his quote. This is Dr. George Goodhart. That's not his quote. This is where the quote comes from, the Encyclopedia of New Age Beliefs. Muscle testing is also based on certain beliefs of chiropractic, including in some forms Dr. Palmer's theory of innate intelligence, and on ancient Taoism. In particular, the meridian structures of the classical Chinese acupuncture. It teaches that if left untreated, blockages or imbalances of the body's energies eventually result in physical illness or aberrations. This man, Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson, he was a man that after I had been involved in martial arts for approximately 20 years, I found out about. He is one of the top, probably 5 medical Qigong doctors in the world. And he was also a martial artist. He's renowned. His list of credentials are unbelievable from the Chinese. When I asked that doctor about how my body knew what herb was in that bottle and that it was good for me, this man answered that question. In the early 1970s, I was training in Chinese internal martial arts, like Bagua or Tai Chi or Xingyi, under a Taoist master from Taiwan. As my teacher began to explain the deeper secret teachings of the Taoist internal Nigong system, or internal martial arts, I suddenly found myself in a state of deep internal conflict over something that he had said. My instructor explained that his master, who had taught all of the senior disciples, that inside the human body are various gods. If you know these gods' secret names and their true forms and pray to them, you will receive their hidden internal powers and will be able to use this magical energy for both healing applications as well as combat. Okay, he said that in 1970, in the 70s, this troubled him. He had a deep internal conflict over what this master said to him. It is important for the reader to understand that up to this point in my life, I had been raised in a strict Christian household. I had been a pastor of 2 halfway houses. I was song worship leader in a Spirit-filled Pentecostal church, and I was leading Bible studies every Wednesday night. Do you understand now why that troubled him? But he wanted the rank. He wanted what this master could give him in ability. So there was a conflict. It's like, do I keep doing this or do I say, no, I don't want any more? Therefore, my immediate fundamentalist response was to leave the class and never return. Let me tell you something. It wasn't his immediate fundamentalist response that was making him want to leave. It was the Holy Spirit that was speaking to him. It was Christ talking to him through His Spirit and saying, run. In ancient China, because each of the internal organs can be energetically manifested as a spiritual form, healing was sometimes addressed to the deity responsible for overseeing that specific organ system. Now let me show you what Star Wars says. Y'all, if you've seen it, laugh about it, but this is there. George Lucas is teaching the same thing. This man was the instructor. His name was Qui-Gon Jinn. And he was teaching this little boy that was one day to become Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. And he said in the film, which billions of people have went to see, without the midichlorians, life cannot exist. And we would have no knowledge of the Force. Continually, these midichlorians speak to us, telling us the will of the Force. When you learn to quiet your mind, you will hear them speaking to you. All those children, all those adults that are going to see these movies, and you think it doesn't have an effect? Now let me show you something very interesting. Qui-Gon Jinn. The word jinn is an Aramaic Muslim word for demon. Qui-Gon, Qigong. It's the same thing. This was demonic Qigong teaching this little boy. You don't think George Lucas knows what he's writing? Watch the films that we have there. You'll see quotes from him. I threw everything away. The apostles of nearly all forms of Spiritism claim to have power to heal. Satanic agents claim to cure disease. They attribute their power to electricity, to magnetism, to the sympathetic remedies, while in truth they are but channels for Satan's electric currents. By this means he cast his spell over the bodies and the souls of men. Those who give themselves up to the sorcery of Satan may boast of great benefit received thereby. But does this prove their course to be wise or safe? What if your life should be prolonged? What if temporal gain should be secured? Will it pay in the end to disregard the will of God? All such apparent gain will prove at last as an irrecoverable loss. We cannot with impunity break down a single barrier that God has erected to guard His people from Satan's power. My message to you is no longer consent to listen without protest to the perversion of truth. Unmask the pretentious sophistries which, if received, will lead ministers and physicians and medical missionary workers to ignore the truth. What is the truth? God's Word is verity. So they don't believe that God will heal just as He has promised, so they're turning to other sources for healing. God calls upon men and women across this world to take their stand under the blood-stained banner of Prince Emmanuel. I have been instructed to warn our people, for many are in danger of receiving theories and sophistries that undermine the very foundation pillars of the faith. I call upon those who have been connected with these binding influences to break the yoke to which they have long submitted and stand free, and stand as free men in Christ. Nothing but a determined effort will break the spell that is upon them. Be not deceived, many will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. We have now before us the Alpha of this danger. The Omega will be of a most startling nature.